Hello everyone, so my name's Alex and I'm going to be guiding you through a painting on the church cutout style 1, and for today's look I am going to be going for a more modern shiplap white light kind of wood color for this cutout here. I'm also going to be writing a quote on the board as well that has to do with church and all that good stuff. So if you want to follow along with this tutorial, then just keep on watching and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for today I'm going to be using mostly for right now just some white and some dark brown paint, and I'm going to use that for the background, which we will get on first. And then I do have a couple of brushes. I have a big flat brush, a longer pointed brush, and then also a finer script brush for writing purposes. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the background. And to start, I am just going to be taking some white on my brush, and I'm going to start at the top here. I'm going to avoid painting the cross right now because I am going to be painting that with gold paint. I think that will look really nicely with the look I'm going for today. So if you wanted to, you could make this wood grain pattern in any shade that you want. You could do a more gray one. You could do more brown, even browner than this. So you could do really dark brown wood. Totally up to you. So for right now, I'm just getting some white on here. All right, so that is one coat of white. Now, the wood is going to start absorbing some of the paint, which is okay. So what I'm going to do for the next step here is I'm going to start introducing a little bit of my dark brown into here, and I'm going to place that in little lines, and then I will blend those lines out. So I want to take a little bit of paint at a time. I don't want to just like dive into this and just go right on there. I'm going to take a little bit of brown. Usually I like to kind of measure by using the corner of my brush, so I'll just take a little bit like that. And I'll start at the bottom here just to see what I get. So I'm going to start blending some of this brown onto here. And with that white paint already being wet, it's going to help blend it out even more. And you can see it's starting to diffuse out, and then you get this kind of wood grain texture here. So I'm going to just add some of this. Don't forget to leave some spots with just white on there. So if you feel like maybe you got too dark, you can for sure grab some more white, lighten things up. But I do want different streaks of brown in here. I do want darker lines of brown. I want lighter lines of brown. So don't be shy. Also, if you want the lines to stay really noticeable, just don't blend them out as much. The more you go over the paint, the more it's just going to mix together. So if I wanted like a really dark line of brown over here, I will just not blend that in as much. And then it stays a little bit darker if I want to add a little bit of white here to lighten some stuff up, because I don't necessarily want the whole thing to be brown. I just kind of want it to have that little kind of grayish, cool brown tone to it. And I'm not going in any particular pattern or anything like that. I'm just sort of getting the paint on there and seeing where I want it. So as you can see, we're already starting to kind of get like a wood grain sort of look here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep painting this, and you can fast forward if you want to. I'm going to add a time lapse here so you guys can kind of watch and get an idea, or you can go ahead and join me and start painting. All right, now that I have a little bit of a base on here for the wood grain, what I like to do sometimes, especially when I'm doing wood grain texture, is I'll take a little bit more of my dark brown, and right along the edges, I will kind of blend some of that in towards the painting, towards the middle, so that it gives it kind of a shadowed look. So I'm going to I'll show you right now, I'm going to take some dark brown on my brush here, and what I'm going to do is start along the outer part of the painting. So I'm starting outside of where the cutout is, and I will work my way in like that. Just a few little strokes, just kind of like that. If something gets a little too carried away, go ahead and blend some of it out. But I think that just gives it a little bit of like a farmhouse style, and it just kind of adds a nice little rustic-y feel to the painting. So you can totally opt out from this step if you are into it. If you just feel like the wood is better like this, then that's totally fine. But I'm going to just very lightly, I'm taking very, very small amounts of paint at a time, and I'm just kind of wisping this in here and dragging it into the center, sort of like that. So if you want just this look plain, that's totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with adding the darker edges here. So this is what I have going on for the kind of darker edges here. Now you can get as dark or as light as you want it to be. Just grab more paint based on how dark or light you want it. But I think that this is going to be good for me. I can always touch it up later if I want to. But what I'm going to do next is we're going to talk about adding the lines for the planks of wood on here. And it'll look even more like wood than it does right now. So for the next step here, I am going to start marking where I'm going to put my lines for the planks of the wood. Now you can for sure use a ruler. I will be using a ruler just to make sure everything is nice and straight. But before we get started actually painting these lines on here, I am going to go ahead and fully dry the painting up to this point. It'll be way easier to get the lines on there if everything is nice and dry. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and I would suggest using a hair dryer. So even if you don't have one nearby, grab any old hair dryer, and I would recommend using the highest setting and the hottest setting, and it will get it dry in no time because this paint does dry very fast. So go ahead, when you get to this point, go ahead and dry it, and then we will move on to the next step. All right, so the next step, like I said, is we're going to go ahead and add these lines on here. Now I just have a regular old ruler and a pencil. So I don't want to overcrowd the background with a bunch of lines of lots of planks of wood. If you want that look, you absolutely can go for it. Since I'm going to be adding words on top, I don't want to overcrowd it. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do maybe like 3 lines or so. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start at the top here. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure my ruler is nice and straight, like so. And I'm just going to take my pencil and add a line. And then you can, if you want to get really technical with it, you can for sure measure each line out, make sure everything's nice and even. But I'm just going to kind of go for it, make a nice random look. You just want to make sure that your lines do go straight across, like this. So I have another one. And then maybe I'll add another one, maybe like right here. Now my ruler doesn't reach, so I'm just going to continue on like so. And you just want to make sure, like I got a little crooked there, so you just want to make sure that you're making your line even. And making it straight all the way across. And then you can just erase any lines that you made a mistake on. So I'm just going to erase this top line. And then maybe I'll make one more little guy down here to kind of finish it off. Like so. So I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines. You can add more, you can add less. And that is what we're gonna do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be using this brush right here, which is a kind of a smaller, finer tip brush. So I'm gonna go ahead and dry this off. Now you can use a thinner brush than this. I'm just going to use this one because I have it on hand here. But I want to make sure that I like to work kind of vertically like this. So rather than going across, I like to kind of work up and down. I just get better control that way. So I'm going to go ahead, and I want the lines to not be super dark. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit of brown and the white that I was using, but I am just going to be using a little more brown than white. So I'm kind of mixing these together. And then what I'm gonna do is trace right over top. And remember, these lines don't need to be perfect because we're just painting them in. If you want them to be super perfect, you can use a paint pen or a paint marker and make it really, really precise if you would like to. But I'm just going to go ahead and continue on with these lines, and you can go ahead and fast forward through this. I'm going to time lapse it, so go ahead and start getting some lines on here. All right, so if I made any mistakes, like maybe I made this line a little too thick here, since I am just using my exact same colors, I'm just gonna grab a little extra white here, just like my background, and I can easily cover up any thicker lines that I might have made if I'm trying to kind of even stuff out. So let's say I made this one a little thick. I can go ahead and cover that up, no problem. So this is what we have as far as the horizontal lines go. Now I am going to go in and add a few vertical lines to kind of make it look more like pieces of wood together. So for that, I can use my ruler again, but I'm just going to add in some lines with my pencil here. And I'll add one maybe right here. So I'm just going straight up and down like this, and then maybe I'll like skip this one, and then I'll add another line that goes right here. Maybe I'll just do the two. I might just add one more over here to even stuff out. And then what I'm going to do is take the same brush that I was just using, and I'm going to go ahead and mix up that darker brown color again. And then I'm just going to make vertical lines. If you like the look of just the horizontal lines, that's totally fine. You do not have to add in the vertical ones that kind of make the planks of wood. You can opt out on that if you would like to. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these on here, and then what we're gonna do is when I come back, we will add in some gold accents onto here, and then we'll get into the lettering. Okay, so now that I've added and finished on these vertical lines here, I am going to amp up the painting here and add in my next step, which is going to be adding these little kind of or screws or nails that would kind of hold the planks together. Now, this is something that you also don't have to add if you don't want to, but I am going to be using this Dazzling Metallics gold paint. This paint you can get at any craft store, and it is amazing. It makes the most beautiful gold ever. So I'm just gonna give this a good shake, and I'm going to put some of this on my plate. I don't really need a lot, but it goes on so nicely. So I'm going to grab that same brush that I was using to make the lines, and I'm going to dry off my brush. Now I wanted the cross at the top of the painting to be in gold, so I'm going to take some of my gold paint and I'm just going to start adding that on here. And I usually like to add at least 2 coats of gold just to really make it nice and solid. But you can kind of see, I hope you can see that it really is super reflective and really beautiful. So I'm going to just color the cross up here. Now, if you don't have this gold paint, or if you feel like you want to go out and buy it and then get back to the painting and do it, I would recommend it for sure. But if you don't want to, you can make this cross any color you want. You can make it white, you can make it brown, however you want, whatever color you want to use. So I'm just going to be using this gold because I think it'll look really, really nice with it. So you can see it's just very reflective, really, really beautiful. So I have the cross like that. And then for the little nails that will kind of hold the planks of wood together, I'm going to be taking the same brush, but rather than using the bristles of the brush, I'm going to be using the back of the brush because it gives me a more round circle. So I'm not going to add them in like every spot here. I might add like some here, some there, but I'm not going to put them everywhere. But let's see what happens. Maybe I will want to. So I'm just taking the back of my brush and I'm dipping it into some gold. And what I'm going to do is I'll add some right here. I'm going to take my brush and just do a little circle like this. And another one right here like that. So now you have this kind of golden nail holding the planks together. I'll do maybe another one right here. And right here. For this particular painting, I'm keeping the background more simple, just for the purpose of adding the lettering on here and adding the quote. So that's going to kind of be the focus of the painting. So I'm just doing something very subtle for this. So you can leave it right here, or you could go on each side of the planks and also add more nails. I'm going to leave it like this. I don't want to overcrowd it. So what you can also do is, if you wanted to, I don't know if I'm going to do it for this particular painting, but you could always take some of the gold that you have to and add it in there and streaks in the background as well. I kind of like to just to have the gold as an accent color, but what I'm going to do is add another layer of gold on top here where the cross is, and then we will go ahead and talk about lettering and getting our words on there. Okay, I have the gold all nice and dry. You do want to make sure, if you're adding these little nails onto here, that I know a lot of the paint will kind of pile up on these. So just make sure that they are nice and dry and that there's no little wet pockets in there or anything like that. But it is all dry. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the words. So I always, for words and writing and all that good stuff, like to use a reference or a guide. So I have this website and it is called dafont.com. That is DAFONT.com. And it is a wonderful website which has free fonts for you to download and use free of charge. And you can also, when you find a font that you like, you can type in whatever you're going to be writing and it will give you what it will look like in that font style. So I love to use this website anytime I'm doing any sort of writing and script and calligraphy. So I'm going to go ahead and write my quote on here. My quote is going to be, "Give God your weakness and he'll give you his strength." So that kind of goes with the church theme here. So with a pencil, I'm just going to follow my reference on the website here. I'm going to write out my words and then we will go ahead and I will show you how to paint them in. Okay, so I'm back and I have now on here my little quote. I also felt like this painting needed a little bit of color, so I made these little kind of vine little branches here with little leaves on them to kind of outline and kind of center the words here. And I'm going to do those in sort of like a minty kind of green color, just to add a little pop of color onto the painting. So I'm going to be writing my words in black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a few things that I like to use when I am painting words. So first things first, I have these little paint markers here, and I got this from Walmart, and this is the brand, and I do also have it in white, and those are the main colors that I use for like fine detail work. or for writing. So they do come in all the colors that you can think of. So it doesn't even have to be this brand. It can be any sort of paint pen or marker that you want to use. But I highly recommend this for writing. And I also recommend getting a script style brush. So I picked up this at the craft store, and it is just a script brush. It says script right there, and it does help with doing like calligraphy and line work really easily. So I'm going to show you with the brush and with the marker how to do this. So for the give God your and he'll give you his, I am going to be probably mostly using the brush here because it gives me a little more control and it helps me go around the edges really nicely. And then I will just probably use the paint marker for the words that are in just like regular font. So and you can also use it hand in hand. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom you in a little bit on this. So I'm going to go into some of my black paint here. This brush is really good for thick and thin lines. So I'm going to grab some black on here, and I'm always looking at my reference that I was using to write. So to start, I'm going to go very lightly. And then as I work my way down, the font gets a little bit thicker. And then when I go back around, it gets thinned out again. So it is really, really easy to use this brush. It just glides right on, and when you make turns, it follows you. So I'm going to just kind of continue on with this. So I get that thin line, and this is the G, so I'm going to just add this here. So I have my first letter done on here with the brush. Another technique that I like to use that I will show you with this G is using the paint marker and the brush together. So I'm just going to shake up this real quick. If you're just buying this, make sure you give it a few pumps before you go ahead and paint. So what I like to do is with the thin areas, I will use the marker, and then with my thicker areas, I will use the brush. So it was a little thin starting at the top of the G, and then I also have kind of a thinner line going on with this part of the G and here. I would say the thickest part is just this little corner right here. So once I use the paint marker like that, then I can take my brush, kind of retrace my steps. I want to make sure you guys can see this. And then what I'm going to do is press, go around, and connect, just like that. Just for the purpose of you guys being able to see, I got a little thick right here, and that's okay. But if I need to thicken up anything, I can always take my brush and do that. And you can also do the same thing with the marker. So for this, I am going to continue on with writing some of the letters on here. So I'm going to continue with give God your, and then I will use the marker for weakness. So I'm going to time lapse this, and then you guys can go ahead and just watch. Okay, so I do have my quote on here. I really like how it turned out. I do always sometimes kind of like to mix like a more normal, not so scripty font with a really scripty font, just to break things up a little bit. So for weakness and strength, I decided to do that. And I am going to now switch up my colors here, and I'm going to be mixing a sort of like minty kind of green color. Now I'm going to just take a little green and some white. And I'm probably going to be using this little script brush for this just because I get a lot more control that way. So I'm taking some green and some white, and you can do whatever color you want to do. I just felt like green will look nice with the brown and with the white here. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead and first off, go right on top of my pencil line. And if you wanted to, you could also make these little leaf accents here also gold. Like I said, I'm just trying to break up the color a little bit. But you can see how nicely this brush holds paint really, really well. And it makes everything nice and smooth when you apply paint with it. So I have that on there. And then what I'm going to do is color in my individual leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these off. And then we will get back to adding any detailing and stuff like that. So all right, so that is my leaves added on there, and I think this just added a little bit of a pop of color onto here. Now, like I said, you can do whatever color you want. This is just what I was feeling at the moment. So if there's any other detailing and stuff that you want to add onto here, you're absolutely more than welcome to. I think that I am all set with this. I really love how this turned out, and I really hope that you guys learned a little bit and enjoyed this look here, this more like modern sort of light wood kind of look, very in these days. So this is the finished board, and I hope you guys liked it, and thank you guys so much for painting with me, and I hope to see you back in my next video. See ya!